Well, thanks, Greg, for taking the time.
Yeah, it's so good to see you guys. Anything you need ever, I'm in. So I'm so happy to talk. It's great.
All right. So the two topics we want to kind of get ahead of before Mental Health Week, two for you today. I know we could talk forever on both of these. Recovery, importance of recovery for mental health, and box breathing.
Let's talk about recovery. I think that makes the most sense to get started, because then we can do a bit of an overview and then get into a specific tactic for sure.
So I guess one of my first thoughts in terms of recovery is we talked a lot for a while about sort of what happens if you don't recover. Like we were throwing around all these words for a while, like burnout, quiet resignation, quiet quitting, the great resignation, and it started to kind of go like, okay, well, what do we do? Like how do we fix this? So I guess one of my first questions for you would be, why is recovery important for mental health?
I think recovery is critical for mental health, because what we know is that if we have bouts of stress, but then we rest, recover, and regenerate afterwards, that's what makes us stronger. That's what makes us fitter. That's what makes us more resilient. If you lift weights, you stress your muscles, but then you rest, you get stronger. If you go for a run, you get tired, your mitochondria build up stronger, you get more endurance. If you work mentally, but then you rest and recover, your neurons get stronger, right? So fitter, faster, more resilient, all those sorts of things occur when we do stress followed by rest and recovery. Problems begin to accumulate when we do stress, right? You have a rough day at work, you go home, your relationship is challenging, you're stressed at home, you don't sleep, you're exhausted, you come back in, you do it the next day. It just like you get on this downward spiral. Mm-hmm. And so I really believe that rest, recovery, and regeneration and recharging are foundational to all of us getting out of overwhelm, burnout, mm-hmm. chronic exhaustion, chronic fatigue. That's so important for us moving forwards.
Okay. In terms of actually doing those things, what do you think an employer can do? Like, how much can an employer push for people to do, and how much is on a person to make time and space for these recoveries?
Yeah. It's interesting. We're in a world now where we've gone through the great resignation, or whatever you want to call it. I actually think it's an opportunity to do the great reimagination, where we can think about work differently and understand that volume isn't the outcome that we're looking for. It's quality. We don't need 10 hours sitting at a desk. We need individuals doing what they do at the highest level as often as possible. And burnout doesn't serve that. Exhaustion doesn't serve that. Fatigue doesn't serve that. And so alternating high performance with deep recovery and regeneration is how we can get to sustainable high performance that also improves mental health. And that is, I believe, on the employer to create an environment where high performance is enabled, but rest and recovery are valued. But at the same time, it's on each one of us as individuals to give ourselves permission to take the time to rest, recover, and to regenerate, and to actually do those practices, whether that's the meditation, going for a walk, reading a book, putting your phone away at night, connecting with loved ones, doing breath work, taking a sauna, plunging in an ice lake, like whatever it happens to be that you're doing to recharge yourself, you ultimately have to do it. And so it's definitely a combination, but ultimately it's about our culture and making a culture shift away from a culture where burnout is celebrated to a culture where high performance is celebrated, but we do it in such a way that it's healthy high performance that's sustainable.
I like it. I want to give you a virtual high five. That all sounds good. So we just have to take it on ourselves and also have our employers set the perfect environment, right? So it's a work in progress. It needs to be
perfect, right? Like, and I like, it needs to be perfect. Where's my basketball court at my office? It does not need to be perfect, and we don't need to be perfect.
Right.
One of the most important things is, like, it really doesn't matter. I used to think that I needed to go to the gym and break a sweat and hit a certain heart rate zone. And what I've discovered is that it doesn't matter if you have your running shoes with you. It doesn't matter if you have the right gym clothes. It doesn't matter if what you do, you just need to move your body in any way, shape, or form, and you get 80 to 90% of the benefits. Meditation doesn't matter if you get distracted. It just matters that you have done a little bit of meditation. It doesn't matter if you've done perfect box breathing 4 seconds in a row, like in, out, and holds. It just matters that you took a few minutes for yourself. we're all works in progress, or as Ted Lasso would say, pro mess. And right, we just want to make a little bit better all the time. Sometimes things will work, sometimes things won't, but we're just trying to do a little bit better every day, each individually, but then also employers as well. You might try some things that might not work. You may try an initiative and it's an absolute home run. So as long as you're willing to experiment, as long as you're willing to be curious, as long as you're willing to fail, as long as you're willing to try, then all of a sudden, over time, you will notice that your people are coming along for the ride and they choose to stay, they choose to show up, and you end up in a much, much better place.
Okay. So is that one of the biggest barriers to actually doing these things, is sometimes that we're afraid what people will think of us if we go for that walk, or we log out a bit early, or we take that rest? Do you think, we ourselves can be the solution and the problem, or how do we overcome these barriers to actually doing the things that, a lot of times we talk about these things, we're like, that sounds great, I'm gonna leave my phone, I'm gonna go for a walk, and then executing the idea and doing it doesn't always happen, right? So how do we get there and actually do the things?
So I was a group that I was working with in finance a few years ago, and it was about 150 finance people in a section of an office building, and they brought me on to improve health and wellness with their team. And their CEO was like, Greg, I'm fully supportive of this initiative. This is great. Anything you need to do it. Got everyone a fitness membership at the gym downstairs. And he's like, I can't believe no one's going. I go every day. I was like, they don't go because they don't see you. You go at 6 o'clock in the morning. You're at your desk at 7 before they all arrive. I need you to go at lunch. It's like, I don't work out at lunch. I'm like, if you want anyone to use the gym, you've got to grab your gym bag, walk through the office so that everyone sees you, leaving the office to go to the gym. In the middle of the day, they need to see you come back sweaty. You got to do the same loop. You got to walk by everybody on the way back into the office, leave your gym bag in your office on the floor so everyone can see it. And as soon as he started to do that, everyone started to go to the gym. They felt like they had permission because the leadership was doing it. So it's really important that the CEOs, the leaderships, the managers model this behavior, because if you don't, your team won't do it. Whatever level of stress you have as a leader will be matched by your team. If you're a high performer, if you choose to do things in a certain way and make it visible, that's what enables the team to then make those similar types of decisions. And you're going to have superstars who do it no matter what. But the reality is it needs to be a culture shift. It needs to be something that's valued and modeled. And that's how we're going to get this into the organization. So it starts at the top, I believe, unless you have a revolutionary team who's like, we're going for a walk, and they all go together, damn the management, which might be fine too. But I really do believe that it starts from the top.
Awesome. Okay, so within the workday, like we're taking, recovery is obviously could be long-term, could be just within your workday and within your work week. What are some tips or best practices maybe for the employees that don't want to go to the gym? What sort of timeline would you suggest for taking a break or a recovery, and what are your top 3 recovery ideas for the non-gym goers?
Yeah, it doesn't need to be the gym. Probably my number 1 fitness recommendation for anyone around physical health is go for a walk. You don't need to go to the gym. Just get outside. 5 minutes works. 15 minutes is incredible. Half an hour is life-changing. An hour, it's just like the angels will sing. And if you're not into exercise, that's totally fine. We just want to, on the nutrition side of things, I would say increase the variety of colors that you eat. Veggies and fruit, just eat more of the rainbow. The more different colors you have, the more vitamins, minerals, polyphenols, and flavonoids that you'll have in your system. And that's like over the course of a week. So maybe add a salad, add a new veggie on the weekend, try a new recipe, eat a little bit more plant-based. I'm not vegetarian. You don't need to be. All that we're trying to do is just to increase the colors of the rainbow that make it into your system over the course of a week. On the mindset side, we're looking to do anything that brings us into the present moment. It can be prayer, can be listening to music, it can be reading a book, it can be talking to a friend, it can be looking out the window at a nature scene, literally anything like that that just brings you into the present moment. That's what trains mindfulness, and that's what can improve our mental health. So there's all sorts of little things like that that you can do that are easy to implement anytime during the course of the day.
Okay. For those of us maybe that are often in a rush or busy, you've got to pick up your kids at a certain time, I don't know, maybe you feel overwhelmed by the amount of work, so you feel like taking a break or taking a moment to recover is gonna stress you out. Do you have a message or top tips to convince yourself that you truly need to take this moment? And what is the shortest moment you can take that will still be worthwhile if you're one of those people who's like, I gotta get it done, and it stresses you out to take a break? Like some of us, if I take a break, I'm not gonna get this done.
Yeah. So the shortest break that you can take is like one breath. So we can just do that right now, right? Like we just, congratulations, you just took a break. No one noticed.
Nailed
right?
it.
That's at a stoplight. That's in the middle of a meeting. That's right before you answer your partner or spouse who has said something that you disagree with. Like whatever happened, your child is puked in the back seat, right? Like exactly. If you're smart, you take the breath and you carry on living your life. But it's the long exhale that sends signals through the brain to the stress region of the brain saying everything's okay. And that calms the stress region of the brain down, decreases the amount of electrical activity going down to the pituitary gland that releases adrenaline and cortisol, which decreases the number of stress hormones that you have circulating around your body, which calms you down mentally and physically. So it's just one little breath. That's all that it takes. But the key is the very long exhale. You can try 4 seconds, do it again, and go to 6, do it again, go to 8. And that's when you really will feel the tension start melting away out of your body. You can do it at a stoplight. You can do it in your car right before you walk in your house. You can do it in the middle of a meeting. You can do it in a long meeting if you're bored out of your mind. I've done a lot of breath work sitting in many mindless committee meetings in academia over the years. So that's the shortest interval, just like one breath. But if you wanted to really do something that's a practice, you can explore something that's a little bit more advanced, like box breathing, which is what special forces soldiers do. It's what SWAT teams do. It's what first responders are trained to do to stay calm, cool, and collected under pressure. And the way that that works is you do 4 seconds in, hold for 4 seconds, out for 4 seconds, and hold for 4 seconds. No one will know. Super powerful. You can do that indefinitely. And when we practice that in conjunction with bringing your attention onto the breath, noticing the flow of air through your nose and out your mouth, taking the breath with your diaphragm, so expanding your belly as you inhale, then all of a sudden you're going to have all of this physical and mental tension start washing away. And you'll be able to stay present, stay focused, stay in the right flow state such that you can do what you need to do at the highest level under pressure. That's a magic one. That's how I do my cold water immersion, right? I just do box breathing when I'm in the lake. But it works at all times, and it's a super powerful little tool. And you don't need to do it in any sort of a situation. You can do it first thing in the morning when you wake up, lying in bed before you get out of bed. You can do it lying in the bath at the end of the day. You can do it in your cold shower at the end of your shower in the morning. There's all sorts of different times when you can do that.
So box breathing is 4 seconds in, hold 4 seconds, and then 4 seconds out. And are you visualizing a box? Because in my mind, I always thought I was actually visualizing a square. Do you visualize a square or just breathe?
You can just breathe, but if you want to visualize a square, that just takes it to another level for sure.
I think that's what I always thought box breathing was I don't know if I had the hold down. I thought it was 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out, and going around a square. So I'm going to try it in my next super boring community meeting or whatever you were in I will give it a go. So driving, waking up, meeting, so just setting sort of a time when you're going to do it and getting used to doing it. Is that your favorite breathing technique of all of the many?
You know what? There's an app that I've been using called Othership, and it's by a group in Toronto that have a studio called Othership, funny enough. And it's a sauna with cold bath plunges. So you can go do a sauna and then jump in the ice cold water, and they teach breath work. They've got an incredible app that I've been using, and it runs me through 5 minutes to 10 minutes of breath work first thing in the morning. So my routine has recently been wake up, do some yoga, jump in the sauna, jump in the lake. And when I'm in the sauna, I do my breath work, and I do the breath work with Othership. So it's sort of like doing Headspace meditation, right? Or calm.com meditation. And they've got some segments to music that are either uplifting, psych you up for the day, get you energized. So lots of sharp exhales, right? Like, right, that sort of activating breath to wake you up. But they've also got some segments that if you are a little bit stressed, a little bit wound up, and you notice that you're a little bit too tense, too anxious, too nervous, big day, whatever it is, that they will help you to calm down as well. So that's what I've been doing, and I've been really enjoying it. The website's othership.us. I'm not sponsored by them in any way. They're just a good group of people doing some interesting stuff. So people can explore that if they want.
Okay. I was just flipping through your new book here. So I was looking at a section you had put on alternate nostril breathing. Is that a psych you up or calm you down style of breath?
Mindfulness tactic. So
okay.
I learned this one in India, and it is really tough. So basically you're sitting down cross-legged or just in a chair, and you just get into a rhythm of breathing, and you just put your hand up by your face, and you just close one nostril, right? And you just alternate how you inhale out of the nostrils, and you just simply move your fingers back and forth. So you're in one, out the other, and then you alternate back and forth. And it's just a mindfulness technique. You'll notice that one nostril will be blocked and then the other one will open up, and it'll move back and forth, and eventually all of your airways start opening up again. So that's a really neat one to explore as well, and has some profound impacts on your ability to stay focused and in the present moment. It's very, very cool.
Yeah, that's cool. So all of these breathing techniques, like breathing in general, oxygen, it's, kind of taken for granted, right? We're always doing it. And, it might be one of the under-discussed topics in wellness. What actually happens from a physiological standpoint when you use these techniques? Like, why do you feel calmer?
Yeah, breath work is super fascinating because it's like there was this big trend for yoga for a while, and then there was a massive trend around meditation. I believe the next massive trend is going to be around breath work, which is an extension of both of those other things. And breath work has been practiced for thousands of years in various different Eastern traditions. So this is not something new. I actually did my PhD on breathing 20 years ago. So it was, no one, 6 people read my thesis back then. Now it's actually relevant 20 years later. I definitely missed the boat on that one. But I think that there's some really interesting things about breathing. And the reason why is because if you pay no attention to your breathing whatsoever, it's going to happen, right? Like it's automatic. And so we breathe because we're awake. We breathe because there's some neurons inside of our brain that there's a resting rhythm that even happens when you sleep. But if you deliberately manipulate your breathing, because it's so closely ingrained and connected to your nervous system, your brain, your spinal cord, that is a way for us to deliberately control our physiology. So if we take a deep breath in and a long exhale, that calms the stress region of the brain. If you do short, fast, sharp exhales, that activates the stress system inside the body and makes us stronger. But ultimately, when we breathe, what's happening is we breathe in, we get oxygen into our bodies. We breathe out, we remove carbon dioxide from our bodies. So oxygen, CO2 out. And that's what enables our metabolism to continue. And we use oxygen in our mitochondria, little tiny structures inside all of your cells, to break down the foods that you eat in order to create energy. And so it's a way for us to ensure that our blood oxygen levels are optimized, our tissue oxygen levels are optimized. We've got oxygen in our muscles, oxygen in our brains. We can think, so we can move, so we can do whatever it is that we want to do at the highest possible level. Similarly, like proper exhaling also clears the waste CO2 out of our bodies and gets rid of that metabolite, which can cause some challenges if it gets high and stays high. So it's just a way for us to make sure that the metabolism in our bodies is optimized. It's a way for us to make sure that our nervous system is in the state that we want it to be in, either calm or excited. And it's a pretty powerful tool that we can use, and it's instantaneous. It's very easy to access. You just need to learn a couple different tactics, and you can put this into practice in your own life.
Very cool. Thank you. Tons there. Just from your book, there was one word that sort of stuck out to me when and I will get a chance to read the whole thing, but just as I was flipping through, I saw something that kind of jumped out at me called transitional ritual. Do you mind taking a minute and talking a bit about transitional ritual?
The transition ritual. So that arose out of, so I've been very fortunate over the years to spend some time at Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto, and one of the areas that I study and I've done research on is leukemia. Another one was cystic fibrosis. But in this day, I happened to be coming home from the hospital after working with the leukemia team, and there was one little leukemia patient who I absolutely fell in love with, and it was a bad day, and that didn't go well. And I was on the way home, and I was pissed off, and I was really freaking angry, and not in a good headspace. And I walked straight into the house to my children and Judith, and I was not a good dad at that moment because I brought my emotions from work home with me. And so in the future, what I tried to do, recognizing that wasn't a very good way of functioning, was that if I have a bad day, if I'm in a place where, I'm not either, still in work mode, which could just be like I'm activated, or there's been some tough stuff happening at work, which happens, I make sure that I take some time on the way home to decompress, which might involve listening to music, calming music, right? Like AC/DC on the way to work, Jack Johnson on the way home from work, very different tunes to choose on the way to and from the office. But sometimes to go to the park, sometimes to go for a walk, sometimes to stop, find a park bench, do some meditation. And I'll call Judith on the way home, be like, hey, sweetheart, I'm just going to take some time. I'm going to do the transition ritual. And she's like, yes, you are. Take your time. There's no rush. If you need an hour, like she's like, don't come home until you are decompressed, right? Because I run pretty hot. Yeah. So that's the transition ritual. And I've taken it to another level this year, just noticing like when there is a shift, when I am transitioning from work to home, because now so many of us have been working from home, and maybe we're working at home still 1 or 2 days a week, right? Like when I'm transitioning from the office I'm in right now, walking down the stairs to go play with my kids, that's a transition. Are you shifting your energy to match what you need to be in the next room? And if you're not there, you've got to take some time, go away. And I'm really working on those transitions to make them less harsh and to make sure that I do my transition before I interact with the people that I need to be with. And that can be ramping myself up or calming myself down. So yeah, developing these little transition rituals to help you move between the groups that you work with, the different energy states that you need to be in is really, really important.
Yeah, I think that's big for a lot of us with that shift to, the days we do work at home, right? It's, you miss that commute or that time when you were listening to the radio or kind of shifting from work day to home. So that's a challenge. Yeah. It's a good challenge area to think about. What about those times, when we do show up before we did our transition ritual and maybe we weren't our best version of self? What can we learn from that, or how do we take that and, instead of beating ourselves up and being our own reason that we didn't recover and get better, how do we take that moment and go like, here's what I'm going to do and I'm going to get better?
Yeah. I met a gentleman named John Gucci. He's John Foley. His call sign is Gucci because he's a F-16 pilot for the U.S. Navy, and he was a lead solo pilot for the Blue Angels demonstration team. Fascinating guy. And what I learned from him is after every single flight, when the team goes out to do a demonstration, and they're the team that goes out and they fly super close together at all the air shows, and they're flying literally inches apart at the speed of sound, like really, really fast. And after every single flight, they come back to the base and they get out of their planes and they get showered. They walk into a room and they do a deconstruction. And in that deconstruction, you have to say what went well, and you have to say what didn't go well. Because if you don't talk about what didn't go well, people die. So you have to say the hard stuff. You have to deconstruct what didn't work. Of course, you want to flag what worked, but you need to talk about what didn't work. And whenever someone brings that up, and it might be someone talking about a mistake that you made, you have to respond with, glad to be here, which means that I am grateful. I love what I am doing. This is an honor and a privilege to be in this room. I am glad to be here. and I appreciate the comment, and we will work together to make it better, right? It's just an attitude. It's a philosophy. It's the glad to be here mantra that he has. And I just absolutely love that as a way for acknowledging that you made maybe a mistake, right? Maybe you weren't your best in that moment. Maybe you could have handled things differently. If you just let it lie, then it builds up and it's problematic. But if you bring it up and you address it and you say, hey, you know what? My bad. Could have done that better. By the way, I do this lots with my kids these days. And they're like, okay, that's cool. Like they move on really quick, way faster than I do. I'm like, I'm really sorry. Like, yeah, that's cool. Like, I'm just going to throw the football now. When you're with your partner, it may take a little bit more, right? But it's that acknowledgement, it's that deconstruction, it's that talking about it, but in a framework of glad to be here. I'm grateful. I'm honored. It's incredible. And that's the balance, right? Is trying to have those difficult discussions and owning it, taking responsibility, right? That radical accountability. And also at the same time, radical acceptance. Like we are where we are, and the past is the past. It's immutable. It's unchangeable. We can do nothing to alter the past. All we can do is be like, all right, so now what? Where are we going? And what do we want to do moving forward? So there's just a lot of stuff wrapped up in there, but that's just a lot of the philosophy that I've been trying to build into my life over the last little while, and the principle and where I learned it from.
Awesome. Well, I think my last question for you is, where can we be? Like, where can we elevate to if we build in recovery in both the short-term scale and then build it in for ourselves long-term and build in the breathing? Like, where do you see people going, and how are they going to be feeling if they do these things?
I honestly believe that one of the greatest pains is human potential unfulfilled, right? Like if you feel like you are not reaching your potential, that is painful. That is like soul destroying. And so ultimately, like my mission in writing books and doing speaking events and coaching is to unlock human potential. That's why I am so opposed to anything systematic in our society that limits human potential because of race, color of skin, gender, like whatever it happens to be. Like if you're being held down because of a systematic limitation, that's got to go because it blocks human potential. And therefore, I believe that anything that we do that elevates our ability to get closer to that human potential is something worth practicing. And so that could be fitness, that could be mental skills, that could be emotional regulation, that could be teamwork, it could be anything. And when we practice these little tiny tactics consistently over time, we get a little bit better. What's our ultimate, genetic limit? No clue. We all have genetic limits in different areas. I will never be a professional musician. Not a chance. My wife might be, me, definitely not. I can listen to music, but I cannot play it. And I could practice for hundreds of thousands of hours and never get there. So my genetic limit on music is limited, but my genetic limit on sports is a lot different, right? I could actually do quite well, especially on difficult sports in difficult conditions that are really mentally challenging. I enjoy those and I tend to do quite well at them. So what I want people to think about is just like, what's your potential? What's your true, where do you want to go? Where do you want to explore? And whatever you think your limit is, it's probably not the actual limit. It's probably a lot further. So let's go for it and try and fail fast and explore and test. And how you're going to have good days, you're going to have tough days. Doesn't matter because we're all just making progress. We're doing the best that we can. So that's how I think about human potential.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Appreciate the time.
Oh, it's amazing to talk to you guys. I miss all of you. It's great to see you, even if it's on a Zoom call. It's incredible and love everything that you do. So honored and grateful to have a chance to speak to all of you for sure.